Hello, I'm John Ziegler, co-founder and partner with Healthcare Development and Innovation Group, or HDIG. It is our mission to make innovation in healthcare more efficient. An important way we accomplish this is by making access to information easier. From our website, you can subscribe to our global, filterable database of healthcare innovators, read our weekly innovation news releases, access research papers, and gain insights from innovation leaders in short-form podcasts. So check us out online at www.healthcaredig.com and follow us on LinkedIn. Today, I would like to welcome McKay Noll to our micro podcast series on innovation and innovators. McKay is Managing Director at Nationwide Children's Hospital and Managing Director for the Midwest Pediatric Device Consortium, or MPDC. McKay, thank you for being here and especially for agreeing to be our inaugural guest.
Yeah, happy to do it, John. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Happy to have you. And Nationwide Children's Hospital is a wonderful asset for the city of Columbus, and it enjoys an international renown as one of the top 10 children's hospitals in our nation. Congratulations to you for that.
Thank you.
Let me start with, what role does innovation play in supporting your mission and your reputation?
Great question. I mean, Nationwide Children's is very focused on pushing things very far and very fast. You can kind of see that by our recent growth with a number of new buildings on our campus, a number of new initiatives and labs that have grown up. One of the big things that Nationwide has focused on is research, and research surrounding product innovation and process innovation as well. The Abigail Wexner Research Institute is an institute here at Nationwide Children's that comprises a number of our staff, not the majority, but certainly close to it, of researchers, both on the clinician side and on the product side, to try and bring technologies and science innovations forward across a number of different aspects: therapeutics, devices, process innovation, et cetera. So there's a lot happening in regards to innovation as a whole, and there's a lot happening with what I deal with, which is specifically on the device side as well.
Yeah, I noticed that you are very broad in what innovation is at Nationwide Children's. A lot of things are very interesting. Everything from, as you mentioned, device, which is where your expertise lay, to life sciences, to even what surprised me, that there is an emphasis on engagement with the patients and the patient's family.
Absolutely.
So that's quite a lot going on there. So I was going to ask you how you support innovation in your organization. You began to drive that, but by talking about how you focus on the device side. But one of the things that's very interesting, you had commented to me earlier, and I think it'd be worth letting people know about, and that is, there's a dual role inside the innovation arena at Nationwide Children's. There's an internally focused role, and there's an externally focused role. Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, you bet. So kind of paring down the broader innovation umbrella to just focusing on product and specifically medical device products, which is where me and my team focus. There are other aspects of innovation that Nationwide heavily deals with in regards to like therapeutics, for example. But speaking specifically about devices and pediatric medical devices, the innovation surrounding that has a two-pronged approach for our group. One is being an internal focus and the other being an external focused entity. And so we actually have two groups, two dedicated teams at Nationwide Children's that focus on each of those things. The internal team is called the Nationwide Innovation Center, and this is a group of biomedical engineering students, clinicians that are doing fellowships with engineers to find unmet clinical needs in the hospital and actually go out, find those with clinicians, and try and solve their problems using either a process or a product innovation. The other team, the MPDC team, is our external facing, which is focused on what can the hospital provide to the greater ecosystem of children's hospitals in conjunction with a number of other children's hospitals in Ohio, and how can we play in the space nationally for pediatric medical device innovations. And we do that through the consortium, the MPDC, as well as the companies that come through that. So external companies from across the country, from California, Texas, New York, can all come to us through the MPDC, and we can provide collaborations or provide clinician insights or access to data, whatever it might be, to try and promote innovation on a national stage.
It certainly sounds like that you are core to your mission of improving the lives of youths, young
Yeah,
children,
absolutely.
and that's fantastic mission. So you are utilizing partnerships. Is the MPDC the most effective way that you can engage with a wide variety of children's hospitals across the nation? It sounded like, and can you describe that a little bit more? Because I think in our
Yeah,
discussions you describe about the way that is structured and geographically organized.
you bet. Yeah, so pediatric device consortiums, PDCs, are actually a nationally funded grant opportunity for consortium across the country. So the FDA has these consortium that they sponsor through this grant, where we have a number of different children's hospitals throughout the country that are hubs of innovation and pediatric medical device innovation specifically. So we at Nationwide Children's are a hub for the Ohio-based children's hospitals like Cincinnati Children's, Cleveland Clinic Children's, and Nationwide Children's. There are 4 other PDCs nationally, one out in Children's National in DC, Lori Children's in Chicago, Texas Children's in Houston, and then UCSF, Stanford. So we are plugged into a national network of device consortium that the FDA is sponsoring to be these hubs of innovation. And we find it very fortunate to be one of those main nodes, hubs for innovation. And we do a lot of interactions with those other PDCs in regards to specific funding opportunities for pediatric startups, for research around pediatric medical device and product development, and a number of other initiatives that the FDA is trying to spotlight in regards to pediatric innovation, like running clinical trials for pediatric devices or using real-world evidence to inform decision-making and clinical guidance. So the PDC, the MPDC, I should say, the Midwest Pediatric Device Consortium, is fortunate enough to be one of those hubs on a national stage.
So when it comes, one of the interesting things that you had mentioned in my mind is that in this collaborative mode where they can come to you or you to they, that is the other members, and ask for information, is the data something that is interoperable, or is there a process by which you share in a very structured way or a confined way?
Yeah, it's very structured when we're dealing with other children's hospitals and other consortium members as well. Obviously, we'll do DUAs and BAA agreements to make sure that we can share data. We can have specific objectives in mind for whatever innovation it might be. So sometimes it might be for a specific clinical trial, might be for a specific study, usability, real-world evidence study. So we use the PDC as an opportunity to link up with other children's hospitals and to find our way to each other, whether or not it's a children's hospital or even a pediatric startup. So getting to a PDC is kind of the way to get introduced. And then from there, from an institution to institution basis, then you can come to the MPDC if you want to reach out to Cincinnati Children's or to Nationwide or to Cleveland Clinic Children's, and we can kind of be that first stop hub again for innovation and for what you might be looking for.
So in this ecosystem, do you have opportunities to, and will you, co-invest in projects that maybe are sponsored by another institution?
Yeah, absolutely. So we as a PDC actually have funding that we will co-invest for companies. So we'll give these small grant awards to companies to say, hey, we really believe in your product, or we really think that we could help you with XYZ task. And we'll give out these small grants. But in addition to that, then there's that opportunity again to say, hey, Cleveland Clinic really has a good cardiology space, or whatever the circumstance might be, to say the MPDC can introduce you and you can start to form a collaboration with their hospital or with Nationwide Children's. The MPDC is trying to make a hub for Ohio, where if you come to the MPDC, you get plugged into all 3 of those major hospitals in our consortium, Cleveland Clinic, Cincinnati Children's, and Nationwide Children's. And then we can have those conversations about doing a partnership, a collaborative clinical study, or might be able to do some co-investment with equity. It just kind of depends on each of the hospitals' take or interest in terms of strategics and partnerships. So again, we're trying to be that first knock at the door, first step, but not necessarily ourselves getting into those partnerships too much. We are trying to be a gateway for others.
So as a gateway, how do these startups find you?
Yeah, great question. We do the best we can to really make ourselves loud in the ecosystem. We reach out to tech transfer offices of other children's hospitals, and thankfully the other PDCs that I mentioned previous have already kind of generated this network where we can call out to, the 4 or 5 PDCs nationally and say, the MPDC is doing a call for small pre-seed grant applications, and we distribute that to local universities, local tech transfer offices, children's hospital tech transfer offices, and even adult hospitals too, because we have seen a lot of instances where adult devices or adult hospitals be trying to diversify and make a pediatric model or a pediatric version of their device. And so we plug into a number of different social media channels, networking channels, tech transfer offices to try and publicize that this is a thing. I will say that the PDCs in general have been around for a little over a decade. So most people know about them, some people don't. And so a lot of it is just getting the word out there, because unless you're coming from a children's hospital, like if you're coming from University of Washington and you don't know that Seattle Children's is doing this PDC thing, then a lot of innovators have never worked with the children's hospital before or haven't even heard about a PDC before. So for some, it's their first time. So we try and plug ourselves into the medtech space at large to try and publicize what we're doing for pediatrics.
Very good. Looks like we should make the things that when you're beginning to call the call to actions be part of our HDIG website, and make sure that we're posting you on LinkedIn as well, making sure these things are happening and broaden your scope. So because you have these PDCs geographically centered and diverse, yet you have your own priorities. So how does the community shape your innovation strategy, or does it? And how tightly do what you're concerned about in our community mirror what's going on in other communities?
Yeah, great question. With regard to the Midwest Pediatric Device Consortium, we're all focused on Ohio for the most part in terms of like the institutions that comprise leadership and staff of the MPDC. We, of course, will deal with pediatric devices from anywhere across the country, but we have an opportunity to kind of represent the Midwest in terms of patient populations, resources available, infrastructure, and economy that we think play really nicely to some of the key objectives of Cincinnati Children's, Nationwide Children's, and Cleveland Clinic, to say each of the children's hospitals might have a different emphasis or skill set, and we can comprise a consortium that takes advantage of all those skill sets, where there might be an emphasis on cardiology or orthopedics or neonatology at a certain hospital or a certain institution. And so we do something very similar to the other PDCs, but the thing that it makes us unique is we're one of the few that have multiple children's hospitals ingrained and embedded into this ecosystem and this consortium, so that you can come to the MPDC as a single node and automatically be plugged into a number of these children's hospitals. And that's a unique advantage, I think, to other PDCs. We're starting to build more of that integrated network, and we're actually partnering with the other PDCs to make sure that across the country, all these children's hospitals are talking to each other. But leveraging the Ohio Children's Hospitals, leveraging the Ohio ecosystem, economy, infrastructure is really a key distinguishing advantage, I think, for the MPDC.
That sounds fascinating. It kind of leads me to my next and last question, or series thereof, it seems. So where do you see the future of innovation for your organization? Is it a focus on new priorities, or this development of better partnerships so that there are new priorities? Or is it myopically focusing on geography and just seeing if things coalesce that way?
Yeah, great question. Our future, especially when it comes to medical devices, I'll say, is focusing on the internal innovation center that I mentioned, going out and really finding what really is a problem in the hospital systems, or for a procedure, or for a device that's already out on the market, and really trying to derive true core problems from what's out in the field and with the patients, And then on the external side, the NPDC side, really making sure that we are partnering with big medtech companies, think like Medtronic or GE, and figuring out what their strategics are in terms of collaboration with pediatrics, because obviously they'll combine or they'll do work with adult devices, but pediatrics is often a tougher pill to swallow. And so trying to lower the activation energy to introduce these medtech companies like a Medtronic or a GE to the innovations coming out of these children's hospitals to say, here's how we can motivate a partnership between a bigger institution to sponsor a project that's coming out of a children's hospital or a university, and trying to make sure that valley of death in the ecosystem is really being addressed, especially with pediatrics, because
Yeah.
the valley of death is there for everyone, but it's even deeper than others for pediatrics. And so our future is focused on really making sure that the ideas coming out of the children's hospitals are solid, that they are truly identifying an unmet clinical need, and refining those to a point where then externally we can go to a bigger medtech company or even just a mid-sized medtech company to say, here's a technology that really does address a need. It's de-risked to a certain extent, but let's sponsor it with a bigger project from a GE and from a Siemens or Medtronic so that then it can get even more help or from a venture capital to try and make it into the community and make it back to the patients from the market standpoint. So that's how we're kind of envisioning the future of innovation.
And as part of that, then speaking of the future, it seems to me that because Nationwide Children's Hospital is so innovative, it becomes a vortex or a funnel for attracting great talent. And you
Right.
therefore create this incredible engine for innovation and excitement over solutions that can solve the problems that exist in our communities.
Yeah.
Would you say it's true that you guys have been able to utilize that as a
Yes.
sounding board to get people in here?
Absolutely. I mean, you just take a look at the Research Institute alone. I think they've doubled the size of their labs and
Wow.
research buildings because they're really focused on pulling in talent from universities, from doctors across the country, and a number of people coming to Nationwide as a innovative leader is no doubt a sign that things are gaining momentum. And it's kind of that positive feedback of the more clinicians and the more innovations we can spit out, the more attractive we are. But we do our part. We realize we're part of a larger network of national children's hospitals, but we really do see ourselves as a leader in innovation.
I would definitely agree. It's wonderful. And as I said in the very beginning, the fact that you are one of the top 10 children's hospitals in the country, and the state of Ohio, which you mentioned, another member of the PDC, is also in the top 10, is quite amazing to have the Midwest
Yeah,
being
absolutely.
so well represented. So congratulations to that, and congratulations to you. And we look forward to continuing to have conversations about innovation. We'll check in with you a little later as well.
Likewise. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'll begin editing that, and that's really fun. It's
It was
a
great.
couple new things that popped up, which were fun to hear. And in our space, we run into a lot of opportunities as well. And because I know you, McKay, even though I don't have some device, I mean, I've got some very interesting things looking for a little funding, like handheld X-ray devices.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
that seems to a child would be much prefer that than to have something else. And then down at my undergrad alma mater, Wake Forest, they have partnered with Atrium. Atrium actually bought Wake Forest Baptist, and they are investing then in their Wake Downtown Innovations. They just, you mentioned like Siemens and some of the other larger companies out there, GE, et cetera, have become an imaging center with RICO. They want an Imaging Innovation Center. RICO has come down there and said, we want to own this much of the building, and we want to become the center for imaging sciences. So there's some interesting things that are popping
Yeah.
up and connecting. But as I said, some interesting things come about our way, some of which have more import in our region. There's a genetic disease that is found in people that are usually from like northern and North Central Europe, so like Irish and Scandinavians, and there's some life science things that people looking to try to find some more pilot opportunities to test some of these things, or tier 1, tier 2
and I will
trials.
say, like with some of the medical stuff we do, we also do like lab and diagnostics. So anything that the FDA will deem a medical device, if it is a therapeutic piece of lab equipment that's a medical device, we do with that too. So anything, there are more opportunities we're seeing in a lot of like cross-pollination between medical devices and diagnostics in the gene therapies and in the therapeutics, and even in combined products where you have a therapeutic, for example, but then you need a medical device to deploy it in like an injector or a scaffold or something like that. So there's been a lot more of those types of innovations popping up recently.
That's cool. Well, I will let you go.
Thanks, John.
I hope this worked. I mean, the recording button was on, and I hope it wasn't just audio, but we'll find out.
Looks great. I appreciate it.
All right. You take care. Have a good one.
Take
I really
care.
appreciate your time.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
Sure, you were planning on that, then we're all fine.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I was kind of planning on throwing in MPDC connections and how that links to the kind of
Perfect
role in general. So we could dive into that if we feel like we have time for that.
That sounds great. Okay, then I will just get started, and we'll again use it as we'll do what we can do. Oops, I just dropped my pencil.